So, and then I'll refresh this real quick because everybody's going to be here in a second. Well, maybe they will be, maybe they won't. Seems like Cole might join us in the voice chat. He's always super supportive.
How many people are usually in the text thing?
Honestly, it really depends on the night. Last night was really good. We had like 12, which was like really out of the blue. Actually, we like topped the charts of the game last night.
Really?
Yeah, like we had, I think, one of the most I think we did actually have at one point the most viewers in that game category last night.
Nice.
Yeah. So, hey Cole,
Hi,
you gonna join us tonight?
Hi, Logan. Hi, Logan's girlfriend.
This is
Hi.
Leah. So,
Hi, Leah.
everybody who's joining us tonight, she's gonna be joining us.
Hello.
Logan, why didn't you tell me that you had a girlfriend?
Well, I don't know.
Wait, was she at King's?
She was at King's. Yeah, this is this is who we ran into at King's.
My
Oh, that's
girlfriend
cool.
at
This
King's.
is
Why
cool.
didn't you introduce
Hi,
your
Cole.
girlfriend?
Yep. Zev, good to see you tonight.
Hi, Zab.
Zev is asking if I lied to you to make you date me. Well, what so what specifically did I lie about, Zev?
Alright. I'll see you later, Logan.
Are you gonna join in the text chat?
I'm already there.
Oh, okay, I gotcha. Yeah, I'll see you there, man. Thanks for joining us tonight.
See ya.
See ya. So yeah, she's gonna be joining us tonight. We're gonna be going into Joseph tonight. So, you know, we finally finished up Jacob and his story. So, brand new thing. Oh, we did you think of a new weekly challenge that we can do? You think of anything?
I haven't yet.
Okay.
Give me a little
So, this is a little bit more unorganized than we normally would. Usually we have a weekly challenge already prepared before we go into the Wednesday night Bible study, but we don't have a new weekly challenge figured out just yet. So we get to figure out a weekly challenge tonight as a group, which honestly, come to think of it, that might be better anyways, because usually it's just me coming up with the weekly challenges, but this week we might actually be able to come up with one together. So Zev and everyone else, if you think of any kind of a weekly challenge you guys would want to do this week as a community, you can, you know, let us know. I don't know, it could be anything, but obviously had to be, apparently I had to have lied about something. So, I guess that's up to you to figure out is where I've been lying to you this whole time.
Well, if you lied, I can't know because it would be a lie and I would know it was a lie.
Yeah, but girls always figure it out.
Well, then I haven't
You
figured
you
it
can't
out.
you can't lie to a girl because a girl will always.
Yeah, so I haven't figured anything out yet.
Yeah, you haven't figured out where I've been lying to
Yeah,
you
if
this
I-
whole time.
Yeah, if I figure it out.
But you'll figure it out, yeah.
Maybe I will.
Yeah, it's okay. The weekly challenge can be to move across the country.
That'd be... I will be doing that.
Yeah, I was gonna say you'd be the only one to actually like complete the challenge.
Yeah, no, that seems unfair.
No one else would be able to. But yeah, so I guess I'll leave that up. Actually, I'll pin that as a message. A weekly. Help us come up with a weekly challenge this week. There we go. So I guess manually unpinned after stream. You guys will have to help me out with that. But yeah, so I know we usually did the announcements and the prayer requests at the beginning and the end, but we have so many of both of those at this point. I'm going to do what I did last week, and I'm just going to do both of those at the end of the Bible study, because it takes so long to go through both of those at this point, so I'm going to wait. Or it can be to practice discernment or to read the whole Bible or to meet Jesus. I mean, all of those, I guess, are theoretically possible. I don't know. I guess you can think about one too. I'll think about one. Usually I'm better at coming up with these, but this week it didn't hit me yet what it should be. Why not split the difference? What do you mean? Split the difference on what? Now I'm curious. I don't know. I'm missing out on something apparently. Yeah, so this is, I guess we can explain something. So this is Twitch, you know, the platform that I'm still learning how to use, the platform that Zev has basically done everything. Actually, Zev, you've done more on Discord, this one. This is the one that you've done more on, this one. I've done a lot of the Twitch stuff, although, Zev, you have really helped me out on the Twitch stuff, too. Do announcements early and prayer requests later, or flip it and pray first. That way you can pray over the stream. I mean, I guess that would work. Although I do kind of like doing both at the end, because I feel like we have more people at the end of the stream than we have at the beginning of the stream. So I feel like it makes more sense to just do them both at the end. But I don't know. We can figure it out, I guess, as time goes on. But yeah, so I guess do we just want to get at it? I'll pray us in, and then we can read over the passage this week. Unless you guys have anything pressing you want to talk about. How's my future husband? His stuff make any changes? I have not got... Oh, I did actually text him last night. I did text Evan and let him know that you guys were praying for him. So he, I will relay Evan's message back to you guys, is that he is very happy. Like, he let me know that he is very appreciative of you guys and that you guys are still praying for him and thinking of him, regardless of the fact that he hasn't been able to join us for quite a while. So he did want me to relay that back to you guys, that he loves the fact that you guys are praying for him and he loves all of you guys and he wants to come back soon. Evan is the one who usually did Wednesday nights with me for Bible study, and he would prepare a lot of the stuff, but he's been... so chat, for you guys who don't know as well, Evan's been out with a lot of medical issues and a lot of like health illnesses and stuff like that. Yeah, so he might have to get a surgery here in about a month or so. But his pain has been lessened a lot, so that's a praise. But yeah, at the same time, he still might have to get a surgery and a lot of illness and stuff too, so. Oh my gosh. But yeah, so this is Zev. Zev has helped me out a ton with everything. He knows a lot more about these platforms than I do. He helps out quite a bit with everything, so he's awesome. And as more people show up, I can introduce them as well. And Cole's also here. But yeah, so I will pray us in real quick, and then I'll swap us over, and we'll read through it. So, Zev is the best mod, and he's the only mod. Moderator. It's short for moderator. I found that out too. So they had to teach me, and I'm teaching you too. Mod is short for moderator. He's not only the best mod, but he's the only moderator. But yeah, you're very much appreciated. But yeah, so I'll pray us in. Father in heaven, I thank you so much for tonight. I thank you for gathering us all here and being able to do this like we always do on Wednesday nights. I pray that we will have a good time, that we will be able to have some good conversation, that you will use me and also Leah and whoever else joins us tonight as your tools to further your kingdom, and that each of us would say all of the things that are glorifying and honoring unto you, that we all might learn something new tonight, and that we would all be able to have a good and fun time discussing your word and whatever else comes along with it. Thank you so much for this and for the good time that we're about to have. In your name, amen. Did you fire Swoopy? I mean, I did get my hair cut yesterday. You missed out on that. Yeah, we were talking about my hair. She actually complimented it, and she thought that it was fantastic and better. It's a common debate right now among a lot of people, including chat last night, as to whether my hair is better or worse now. So Zev and chat, you guys can help me out and decide whether it's better or not. You forgot his name. Whose name did you forget? But your hair is better short. There we go. There's another one. Better short. There we go. A lot of people seem to like it, but I mean, it's also a 2D image, you know, so maybe it's different in person than it is on the screen, but I don't know. Swoopy Hair's name? The mean one. Oh gosh. The mean one? Are you talking about Bert? Oh my gosh, I haven't talked to Bert in months, if that's who you're talking about. Yeah, no, it's been a long time. If that's who you're talking about. Yeah, Bert. Okay, okay. Yeah, it's been a long time since I've talked to him. I have no idea what he's up to right now. He kind of just peaced one day. He came to me and he's like, peace. And he head out, and I haven't talked to him since. Wasn't he a mod? Well, he wasn't necessarily a mod, but he was one of the people who, like, started this channel with me. Like, it was me, Bert, and Evan. We were the ones who all felt like we were being called to put this on together. And then we did. And then he kind of pieced because he didn't like it anymore. And then Evan got sick. So, yeah, now it's just me. But, yeah. So I guess technically he was a mod. Although I will say, if you guys didn't notice, hang on a second. Hang on a second. Let me pull it up. You guys should be able to see this. If you guys didn't notice, we are at 95 followers. So that's to say, me and some friends have really been trying to figure out what that 100 follower celebration is going to look like. I've put a lot of thought into that. I'm not going to spoil right now what it's going to be, but let's just say it's coming up very soon. We had like 5 followers just last night, so it could even be tonight that we hit it. But yeah, so we'll do that soon enough. But one thing I will say is that when we do hit the 100 follower, I believe Evan and Bert should be making a comeback just for one night. So you have that to look forward to, that Evan and Bert should be here for a night, to join us back for that. Zev loves your shirt.
Thanks. Says Kentucky on it.
Because we're from Kentucky.
Yeah.
Well, she's actually,
you're not
she's
from
a
Kentucky
native-born Kentucky person. I'm just a wannabe nomad.
Not a Kentucky person.
I'm a nomad who's traveled like my whole life and never really been able to settle down, so I don't really have a home. I just happen to live in Kentucky right now. Don't criticize Evan, he can do no wrong. Well, he's sick. I know, I wasn't criticizing him, I was just stating the fact that he hasn't been able to be here because he's sick. Kentucky is alright. I'm just a wannabe southern state. It's just a wannabe southern state. I mean,
absolutely not. Who is that and where are you from? Kentucky is more southern than anything geographically south that you have ever seen.
I don't know about that.
So don't even, we don't want to go there.
I don't know
Just
about
skip that.
I don't.
Just
I
skip
don't.
that.
I think I'm in
will derail
agreement.
your entire
It's more
conversation.
Midwestern than it is southern.
Guys, let's stay focused on your thing.
I'm just saying.
You don't want me to
I
go
mean,
there.
you don't see people around here talking like yee yee.
You don't want me to go there.
Super
We will
super
move
like
on.
cowboy hats and.
Kentucky is a
yee.
southern state. I've been to Florida. I've lived in Florida.
Okay, Florida's not
More
southern.
southern than Florida.
Florida's not southern though.
Compare it to something else.
Kentucky is more southern than Florida.
Okay.
I will say that.
Just as southern as you can get. Though not, there's southern geographically and there's southern
Well, okay, so that's what
culture.
he's saying. That's what he's saying.
Southern culture. It's a southern culture state. It's not southern geographically.
Yeah, Kentucky is not more southern than here.
It's southern culture though. That's different. It's two
I don't
different
know.
categories of southern. Just, you will develop an understanding of that. Okay, you're just not there yet, and I'm gonna just let it slide.
He actually lives more south than we do.
That doesn't matter. Kentucky is still a southern state.
Okay. I mean, it can be southern, but not super southern.
It is super southern. You've only lived here for a year. You
But
really
I've
don't
also
know that
lived in
much.
places that are actually
But you
yeehaw
don't know
territory.
a lot about
Like
Kentucky yet.
Houston, Texas is yeehaw territory.
Are we distracting your entire?
This is what we do.
This is what you do?
This is fun. It's fun.
Oh, okay.
We have a
Then-
good time.
Okay, then. Yeah. Okay. No, Kentucky is.
Gosh, we went last night. You should have seen last night. Last night, we went from talking about we were playing games, and then we started talking about the economy. Then we started talking about evolution. Then we started talking about the 613 laws of Moses and how they apply to a modern day setting, in a Jewish setting, and in a Christian setting. And then the different types of Messiah, and like we just went all over the place. Like it's just what happens. I'm just saying culturally we're more southern, and that's what I'm saying. You can be southern, and then there can still
Not
be places.
Southern. Don't say it wrong.
Nobody says that around
You
here.
said southern. What is
Yes,
that?
southern, northern, southern.
Who messed up your language? That is completely inaccurate. No, I've never heard anyone say that in my entire life.
Oh my
No one
gosh.
says that.
all right. So we'll come back to that. I guess I can read us through the passage and then we can get going. We'll see how that goes. Oh gosh. Oh my dog. I've never seen that emote before. That's so funny. I love that.
What?
I've never seen that emote before. Oh my dog.
Oh, that's funny.
That is funny. I love that. Leah's right on that one. We're still culturally more southern. That's what I said.
Absolutely.
How-
Whoever said that.
How
you
are
got me.
how are
got
you
me.
saying that Leah's right
'Cause I know.
whenever I'm the one that's in agreement with you?
But you're talking like you're disagreeing with me.
I'm agreeing.
You're not agreeing.
I'm agreeing with Zev on this one.
Who says that Kentucky's not southern?
He's saying that they are still culturally more southern
Okay. Step number 1.
because
not
it's southern, not southern.
It's not southern. Whoever like
South
let's
or
just
in
learn this
South
now.
or in Southern.
It's like if you say Louisville, it's wrong.
What is it?
Louisville. It's not Louisville. That's like absolutely not. Never say that.
Oh my
Ever.
gosh. But Kentucky is less southern than my state geographically and
What's your
culturally.
state? What's your state?
Okay, so
Where is he from, this person? Who is this person? What is your name?
It's Zev.
Oh,
Zev
it's
the
Zev.
ones that's talking.
Zev, where is he from?
Well,
Where's he from? That's an important factor in this.
Gosh, you've
conversation.
moved all over the place. I honestly don't remember where you're at right now. You've moved all over because you were Georgia, North Carolina, and then I think Tennessee at one point. You've been all over the place. I don't remember where you're at right now. I'm sorry. Let's see if he remembers. I told you, I know you've been all over the place. I don't remember where you're at
What's your
specifically
best
right now.
guess?
Well, no matter what, all three of those are more southern than
Your
here.
life depends on the guess. You have 10 seconds.
North Carolina. I'm like,
That is not southern at all. Not even a little bit.
well, if it's
We
Tennessee,
have got to
if
get
it's
it together.
if it's Tennessee, then Tennessee is absolutely more southern than here.
yeah, but
So you agree?
no, I take it back. It's
Tennessee is
geographically
definitely
southern.
Tennessee
It's
is
the same
definitely
level.
more southern.
I will literally like throw something at your face if you say.
I've lived in
southern.
Georgia and now in Alabama. Wait, who lives in North Carolina then? I'm sorry.
North Carolina's not southern.
Okay, Alabama is absolutely more southern than here.
Have you lived in Alabama for a significant period of time?
No,
Have you been there?
I know people from there.
That does not count. You have
I've
to form your
heard.
opinion.
Listen,
You're
I've
forming an
been.
opinion based on other people's experience. You cannot do that.
All right, we're gonna have to move on. All right, so, yeah, I guess I can read over the passage real quick. I'll just read through it, and then you guys know the drill. Come up with your own questions, comments, and concerns that we can discuss after I've read through it. Look, we're called the Heart of Dixie for a reason.
Who's the heart of Dixie?
Alabama.
Okay, listen. I'm distracting all of you. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay.
But my final point.
Okay.
Kentucky is
Final point.
culturally southern.
It
Just
is
as-
culturally southern.
Yes.
It's culturally
Just
southern.
because Alabama is more geographically south doesn't mean it's more culturally southern. I would put them on the same level.
Okay.
All I'm saying.
All right. All right. So also, you guys know the drill. If you want to pull up with me, we're going to be reading Genesis 37. We're going to be starting in verse 1 and going through the whole chapter this time. So if you want to pull up your own version alongside and read along, you can. Otherwise, I'll have it pulled up on the screen, as always. So remember, come up with your own questions, comments, and concerns. We got to make up for Evan's absence. You know, he's always the question and comment maker. So since he's not here, we got to pull up the slack. So starting in verse 1, Jacob settled in the land where his father had lived as an alien, the land of Canaan. This is the story of the family of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was shepherding the flock with his brothers. He was a helper to the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought a bad report of them to their father. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any other of his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he had made him a long robe with sleeves. But when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him, and could not speak peaceably to him. Once Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream that I dreamed. There we were, binding sheaves in the field. Suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright. Then your sheaves gathered around it and bowed down to my sheaf." His brothers said to him, "Are you indeed to reign over us? Are you indeed to have dominion over us?" So they hated him even more because of his dreams and his words. He had another dream and told it to his brothers, saying, "Look, I have had another dream. The sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to me. But when he told it to his father and to his brothers, his father rebuked him and said to him, What kind of dream is this that you have had? Shall we indeed come, I and your mother and your brothers, and bow to the ground before you? So his brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. Now his brothers went to pasture their father's flock near Shechem. And Israel said to Joseph, Are not your brothers pasturing the flock at Shechem? Come, I will send you to them. He answered, Here I am. So he said to him, Go now, see if it is well with your brothers and with the flock, and bring word back to me. So he sent him from the valley of Hebron. He came to Shechem, and a man found him wandering in the fields. The man asked him, What are you seeking? I am seeking my brothers. He said, Tell me, please, where they are pasturing the flock. The man said, They have gone away, for I heard them say, Let us go to Dothan. So Joseph went after his brothers and found them at Dothan. They saw him from a distance, and before he came near to them, they conspired to kill him. They said to one another, Here comes this dreamer. Come now, let us kill him and throw him into one of the pits. Then we shall say that a wild animal has devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams. But when Reuben heard it, he delivered him... Oh gosh, I lost my spot. He delivered him out of their hands, saying, Let us not take his life. Reuben said to them, Shed no blood, throw him into this pit here in the wilderness, but lay no hand on him, that he may rescue him out of their hand and restore him to his father. So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the long robe with sleeves that he wore, and they took him and threw him into a pit. The pit was empty, there was no water in it. Then they sat down to eat, and looking up, they saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead, with their camels carrying gum, balm, and resin, on their way to carry it down to Egypt. Then Judah said to his brothers, What profit is it if we kill our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and not lay our hands on him, for he is our brother, our own flesh. And his brothers agreed. When some Midianite traders passed by, they drew Joseph up, lifting him up out of the pit, and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver, and they took Joseph to Egypt. When Reuben returned to the pit, and saw that Joseph was not in the pit, he tore his clothes. He returned to his brothers and said, The boy is gone, and I, where can I turn? Then they took Joseph's robe, slaughtered a goat, and dipped the robe in the blood. They had the long robe with sleeves taken to their father, and they said, This we have found. See now whether it is your son's robe or not. He recognized it and said, It is my son's robe. A wild animal has devoured him. Joseph is without doubt torn to pieces. Then Jacob tore his garments and put sackcloth on his loins and mourned for his son many days. All his sons and all his daughters sought to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted and said, No, I shall go down to Sheol to my son mourning. Thus the father bewailed him. Meanwhile, the Midianites had sold him in Egypt to Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard. So that's chapter 37. And we're going to do our thing. Oh gosh, what did I miss? Okay, so Altus has stopped by. We love Altus. Altus is actually studying under rabbis, like Jewish rabbis.
Legit.
And he knows all the Jewish perspectives on these passages, and we get to go back and forth on them, and it's a fantastic time.
Sick.
So we have a great time doing that. No, she's not my wife. She's my girlfriend. He always comes by, and he has a thing he says. I think you'll love this. He says, "Shalomi, my homies."
So.
Shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom-e, my homies.
That's cool.
Yeah, I knew you'd like that.
Like it.
So, Zev says we're not married, and he says it's a scandal. She's only with him because he lied about being cute and nice. See, I apparently...
How can you lie about that?
I don't know how you can lie about being cute.
Unless you're just in a facade, and that's not really...
This isn't actually what I look like. I pulled a Mission Impossible, and I've been wearing a mask made by the FBI every day for the past, 4 months.
You can lie more about being nice than about being cute.
You could definitely lie a lot more about being nice than cute.
Because that could just be a facade.
Yeah.
How long can you keep up a facade of being nice?
Usually 90 days, statistically speaking.
90 days? You can be nice for 90 days?
Well,
That's a
okay,
long time.
so statistically speaking, they've actually talked about this. It's there's different thresholds for when couples get married and how long the marriage will last. And one of the thresholds is at 3 months or 90 days because they've said within 90 days you can hide pretty much any secret. but after 90 days, it's pretty much impossible to keep any aspect of your life secret.
Oh.
So that's actually one of the thresholds for, like, statistically how long a marriage will last.
If you
Is
can
like
make it
3.
90 days.
Well, 3 months is like the first threshold, and then there's the threshold after the infatuation stage at like 9 months. And then like there's different. And then the like in care of persons with Dr. Dean, she brought this up as well, and she said like different age ranges too. Like statistically, I think she said between 22 and 28 if you get married, that's actually statistically the highest likelihood that you'll stay married. Anything before 22 is more likely to not work, and anything above 28 is more likely not to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
She didn't know the reasoning. She specifically said she didn't know the reasoning, but her best guess is because before 22 you're not really adults yet and you don't know what adulting life will look like, and after 28 you've kind of settled into what your life looks like, and it's hard for you to change your life after that.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah, that's the points that she made.
Okay.
But psychologically, you know. And that's why I'm here. I was also deceived by the same lie. Wait, the lie that I'm cute and nice? That's why you're here?
But why would that constitute you being in a Bible study?
Apparently he's only here because he thinks that I'm cute and nice. I don't know.
You can't lie about what I mean, unless he's literally just has a mask on or something.
So Altus, he's giving examples of his fun questions. His fun questions are things like, who sold Joseph, and what does the second dream mean that the first one didn't? So I'm sure we'll get into those.
Okay.
Zev says it's a bodysuit. And Zev says, not that I think you're cute, because you aren't that or nice.
Okay then.
But Evan is, though. Because Evan, I mean, I'm in agreement. I'm in.
So Evan's like.
Listen, I'm in stark agreement that
Oh.
Evan is the cutest and also the nicest.
Oh.
Although when we get in theological discussions, he's not so nice.
I see.
Well, then again, I'm not either, so.
Interesting point.
It's specifically when we butt heads. Usually whenever I butt heads with anyone else theologically, it's not that bad, but for some reason whenever we do, it's like...
Okay.
I mean, we don't actually hate each other, but
Well,
we get like into it.
That's fair.
But yeah, okay, so two things that I want to point out that I noticed while I was studying this passage this week, because, you know, as we've been, like, deeply studying this entire book of Genesis, there's, like, themes that I notice that I can point out that I wouldn't be able to point out if I just studied this by myself. One thing that I mentioned in a previous week is that Jacob, they go back and forth on his name. Like, they did this in the last chapter, and they're doing it in this chapter too. And I still don't know the reason for that. Like, I haven't seen that in any commentaries. The only thing I can best guess is that leans into the two authors theory. So like, actually, let me explain that a little bit further, right? So in previous chapters, we were talking about how God changed Jacob's name to Israel, but he's not always referred to as Israel in the chapters after that. Like, you know, like whenever Abram is renamed to Abraham, there's never instances after that where he's called Abram still. Every single instance after that, he's called Abraham. And the same thing with Saul turning into Paul. There's never an instance where he's not called Paul after God changes his name. But Jacob, for some reason, they go back and forth. And they're doing it in this chapter too. Like here at the very beginning, Jacob settled in the land. This is the story of the family of Jacob, right? But then, as the chapter goes on, they start calling him Israel again. And I never noticed this on any of the previous read-throughs. But I've been noticing it in this read-through. Gosh, where is it? Where do they call him Israel again in this chapter? I know they do it. Anyways, I know that they do it. So that's one thing that I've noticed. Oh gosh, so... Oh, you and I get... Okay, actually, that's true. Me and Zev get into it too sometimes. Evan is like 90s Leonardo DiCaprio times 100. That's a high praise. I enjoy a good headbutt. You can't sharpen iron without a few sparks. I mean, Altus, we were talking about that last night. We were talking about how we would rather have a conversation with, like, differing opinions than in a room with 20 people who agree with everything we say. So... Good catch. And they go back and forth between the sons of Jacob, Israel, and brothers. Yeah, exactly. Like, they go back and forth on that for some reason. But each instance has its own reasoning. Brothers implies unity in purpose. Sons of implies that they are united in blood during that time. 37:13, I think they say Israel, or yeah, it was something around there. Yeah. But it's interesting, right? And like, I don't know if anyone's ever heard this specific theory before, but I talked about it a lot in some undergrad classes, and also a little bit in some seminary classes here. It's this idea of, because like, you know, for a lot of time, the Pentateuch has been believed to have been entirely written by Moses, but like there's this recent theory in modern like biblical studies that the Pentateuch is actually written by 4 authors. So the 4 authors are the P source, which is the priestly source, which is a lot of like the law material and a lot of the stuff like that. And then there's the D source, which is the Deuteronomic source, which is, you know, Deuteronomy and a couple other things here and there. And then the rest of it is either the E source or the J source. And the reason they're called the E source and the J source is because the one source always refers to God as Jehovah, and the other one always refers to God as Elohim. So like some instances of this are like the 2 different creation narratives, like the original, like Genesis 1 and then Genesis 2 to 3, right? So that's one idea of it. And then like the idea is that this could be another one of those instances, like one of the authors uses Jacob's name, and that's where this first part comes from, and then the other author is Israel. And like I haven't studied this theory all that much, but I know a lot of people have been kind of standing more and more by it as time's gone on. Terms used to convey additional layers of meaning. I just read an article that says some people think it's referring to old him as Jacob and new him as Israel. Interesting. Also, you can feel free to butt in at any time.
No, I think, who said that?
Zev said that one again.
No, I kind of, like, I'm trying to articulate my thoughts a little bit, but I do see your point. Go for a little bit. I'm thinking of what
Yeah, just butt in whenever you want.
Yeah.
That we recommend that anybody here does that. So
cool.
But so actually that does go into one other thing that I wanted to talk about for this passage is something that I actually studied last week, and it's the idea that these stories are a little bit out of place. So what I was reading last week actually is that in chapter 35, whenever we were talking about Rachel's death and about Isaac's death, a lot of that takes place after Joseph's story. Right? Because in Joseph's story... Oh gosh, wait a second. Is it working? Or is the school internet being really dumb? I actually haven't had issues with the school internet in a long time, so I'm going to be really upset if it's acting up tonight. Chat, let me know if it's still working. Gosh, we haven't had problems with the school internet in like months, so I'm gonna be really upset if it's acting up tonight. I think it might be fine, it just might be a little bit slow. So chat, let me know if it is behind. I'll just keep going until I hear otherwise. So, like, the reason for hearing about this in the first place was that the commentary I was reading was talking about how Isaac was still... Or, not Isaac. Like, the idea is that these passages with Isaac and Rachel's death most likely took place either in the middle of Joseph's story or afterwards. So it's, like, a little bit kind of out of order here. And one thing that I saw to kind of support that is this passage here, you know, it refers to Joseph as the son of Jacob's old age. But in chapter 35, Benjamin's born now. So why would it be calling Joseph the son of his old age whenever Benjamin was born now, right? And then the other instance of that is whenever Jacob is telling Joseph's telling the dream to Jacob, and Jacob says, you know, am I and your mother and your brothers to come bow down to you? Why would he say that if his mother's dead? Right? So the idea is they're referring to Joseph as like a single son right now, like the son of his old age, right? The beloved. and it's almost referring to Rachel as if she's still alive. So it almost makes sense to me that this kind of takes place before Rachel's death. At least that's how it makes sense to me. I know I was reading some commentaries that were saying a very similar thing. So Altis says, I have a slightly different view when it comes to the dream. Wait, so what in particular, out of curiosity? Because there's definitely a lot that I would want to say about both of the dreams. So I'm curious what you have to say on the dreams before I get into any of that. But yeah, that's to say, I've been kind of looking at that. Like, it's interesting. Well, I guess, first of all, the interesting thing that I pointed out is that, you know, they go back and forth between referring to him as Jacob and Israel, which I found to be really interesting. Which could be that some of this is maybe taking place... Well, I would say that maybe some of this is taking place before Jacob wrestles with God, but it couldn't, because it's saying specifically Jacob settled in the land where his father had lived as an alien, the land of Canaan, and whenever he comes back to live with his father again, it's after he wrestles with God, because he wrestles with God on his way back to his father's homeland. So if he's already back in his father's homeland, that wouldn't make any sense, because he would have already had his name changed to Israel at this point in time. Although maybe I'm mistaking that. Maybe I got the timeline a little bit messed up, but that's how I remember it. So I have a slightly different view when it comes to... Can I jump into the voice chat and explain it? Odd request, I know. I can type it all up here instead. Okay. Yeah, I mean, we haven't done that before, but... I mean... The reason why we usually don't invite people into the group chat is because you can't always trust absolutely everyone to not say things that are really bad. But I trust you enough after all this time that I would trust you to, like, not say anything horrible on stream. So yeah, we'll do that. Alright, can we hear you?
Yep.
Sweet, let me turn you up a little bit. Yeah, like I said, I don't usually do this, but I trust you enough to not say anything, like, bannable on the channel.
Yeah, I'll try. Okay, so yeah, when it comes to Benjamin had to be born after Jacob and Esau. One of the reasons why is because when it comes to the book of Esther, fast forward all the way, Mordecai is the only one who doesn't bow down to Haman, and Haman is the descendant of Esau, and all the other descendants of Jacob bowed down to Esau along with Jacob. However, Benjamin did not. Mordecai is of the tribe of Benjamin, which is why he didn't bow down.
Okay.
So it was not owed to him to bow down because that wasn't something that was given to Esau to begin with.
That's so interesting. So you're saying this dream where he says, you know, the stars and the sheaves and the sun and the moon all bowing down, you're saying that was actually a prophecy of later down when all the tribes would bow down except for Benjamin's tribe, like way down the line.
Just that would be where Benjamin has to be born after the Esau story, or the Mordecai thing doesn't make sense.
Oh,
but when it comes to the two dreams have two different meanings. So when God gives people visions, he doesn't just give them visions twice with no meaning, like, oh, hold on, I have to go back because I forgot to add in your mother and father, and I know the brothers are, you know, PO'd at you, but I'm gonna give you another dream that you have to then explain again to your brother so that they hate you even more, because this is fun for me, right? So there's two different dreams with two different meanings. So if you look at the first dream, they're doing work in the field, and they have sheaves, and it's on Earth, and they're doing all this labor on Earth, and after their labor, their sheaves all bow down to his. So this is on Earth, worldly labor, things like that. The next vision that he has is different. This time, it's not on Earth, it's in the heavens, and everyone's represented by stars. And then the stars, the sun, and the moon are all bowing down. What's different is that the mother is dead at this point.
Yeah.
Well, you also have a change of location. So the first one is on Earth, the years of labor, the time spent on Earth. The next one would be seen as like the resurrection of the dead, the New Jerusalem, the heavenly abode, where now the father, the mother, there is a resurrection, they're alive, and they're bowing down to this new Joseph figure. So within this, there's a short-term prophecy, which, if you look at the tale of, or the end of Joseph's story, the brothers come to Joseph and they all bow down.
Yeah.
The father never bows down. And the mother never bows down. Which means that the second prophecy is a much longer term prophecy and could be a hint towards the Messianic age, when one who is like Joseph, or comes in the typology of Joseph, hated by his brothers, thrown into a pit. They go to the pit. He's missing out of the pit. He ascends to the right hand of the land, right?
Yeah.
This typology of everyone bowing down to this Joseph figure, and it's including the dead people, the dead relatives.
Yeah. No, I like that, because, like, in the first one, right, it specifically says that it was, like, I guess it doesn't specifically say, but it does seem to be implying that it is specifically his brothers that are bowing down to him. And that does happen on Earth whenever they go to Egypt, right? And it never specifies that it's all 11 of his brothers either, because since Benjamin, well, I guess Benjamin would have been there. But the second one, it does specify that it's all 11 brothers, because it's 11 stars and the sun and the moon. And if it does take place after Rachel's death, right, then that would make sense, right? This is, like, later down the line. And I'm guessing that goes into what you were saying earlier about, like, the Messiah of Joseph and everything.
Yeah, and there's also, like, additional layers that are, like, put into that, because from that view, the family history is anyone who seems to be against the family or starting to look more, I don't know, pagan, if you will, they get kicked out of the family, right? Like, you have Esau, you have like Cain, you have Ishmael, right? Like, there's a history of, you do something we don't like, or we get a bad vibe about you, we need to kick you out for the security of the family. You have Joseph, who comes up and says, hey, I've got this dream, you're all going to bow down to me. But really the turning point there, where his father even rebukes him for it, is when he's like, oh yeah, you, my father, and my dead mother are going to bow down to me. This kind of crosses the line of what should be accepted. And then at that point, the question is, well, are brothers trying to act righteously? Because, you know, like, from that perspective, he's not the firstborn. He's getting all the firstborn things. Yeah. Like, and he's also claiming that everyone, including the dead mother, is going to bow down to him, and this has been revealed in a prophecy. Like, you've got to be out of your mind. Yeah. So.
No, that's interesting. Yeah, I see exactly what you're saying. Honestly, I didn't even infer, but like, a lot of that. I love it though.
And then why doesn't, like, Joseph goes up? He's the right hand of Pharaoh for a long period of time. He never goes back to tell his father he's alive. Why? Because according to his family history, like, if we put ourselves in the shoes, we can only speculate, but from their family history, his father says, I want you to go check up on your brothers. His father knows the brothers hate him, and his response is, here I am. The same response that Isaac had right before Abraham was about to sacrifice him. Yeah. It's Hineni. Here I am, here I am. I want you to go check up on your brothers. Here I am. That's out of place. It's weird.
Yeah. No, I see.
And then he goes and checks up on the brothers. The brothers jump him, put him into a pit. This is shortly after him being rebuked for his dreams. Yeah. And he's never heard from again. He never checks back in, because from his point of view, his father is the one who orchestrated it.
Yeah. No, I didn't even see it from that point of view. Like, specifically the idea that his father would have orchestrated it.
Yeah, just like, if you're in Joseph's shoes and you only had what Joseph had as knowledge, like, my father's angry at me, my brothers are angry, my father sends me to go check on my brothers, and as soon as I get there, they throw me in a pit, they sell me into slavery, and now, then that happens. Like, why would you go back when you know the history of Ishmael and everyone else? Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Back up, down.
What was that?
So I'm gonna jump back down into chat, and I've got to go drive
okay.
the wife.
Oh, I gotcha. Dude, honestly, thank you so much for all that. Like, I usually don't do that, but I really appreciate all of that. That was really cool. Definitely a lot to think about. Like,
all right, now feel free to debunk all that now. All right, I gotta go.
No, you're good. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right, so I did see. Sorry, Zev. I did see your comment. I just didn't get to mention on it. Yes, Rachel was the pretty one.
Yeah, Leah's the ugly one. I get the joke.
Yep.
I understand. I didn't choose my name.
Zev, were you doing that on purpose?
Yes, you're calling me ugly. I get it. It's okay. And I have weak eyes, and I've heard.
Yeah, you've got weak eyes.
It's all the things. And
weak
there's
eyes
a lot
and...
of Leahs at Christian colleges too, which I don't understand because yes, I get it. Okay, I've heard it all before.
Mm-hmm.
So just bring it on. Whatever you want to say about my name, I get it. It's fine. I don't understand. I didn't choose my name.
I mean, it's a pretty name at the very least.
But no,
But yeah.
I get it. I get it.
Oh no, okay, Zev actually wasn't pointing. He was like genuinely asking. No, Rachel was the pretty one because Rachel was the beloved of Jacob, and that's why Joseph was the liked son who got the coat because he was the son of the loved mother. So Viking comes in. Hello, it's crazy. Maui, Hawaii is having wildfires. Viking, are you still here? Gosh, I hope you're still here. I kind of want to like be able to talk a little bit more about that. But good to see you stop by, man. Are you the same Viking who stopped by a couple weeks ago during Bible study stream? Because I remember Viking stopping by, but I don't remember being the silent Viking. So I don't know if it's the same Viking or not. But you'll have to help me out and help me remember if you're this, because I remember Viking, but I don't remember being the silent Viking. Whenever I think of Leah, I think of Stardew. Oh gosh, yeah.
What?
Stardew Valley is a game.
What? Yeah, I don't play video games. Sorry, I don't know what that is.
It's okay. So I'm assuming that Leah is one of the characters in Stardew Valley, which is actually one of the games that I suggested we played together.
Okay.
So I don't know if we'll ever end up actually getting to play Stardew Valley or not, but I guess apparently there's a character in that game named Leah. So there we go.
I might, when I'm across the country, be able to play the game.
Yeah, you'll be able to play.
We can do it virtually.
Yeah, you'll be able to play. But yeah, so we'll see how that goes. So yeah, I want to talk a little bit about what Altus came in and talked about. Because honestly, I thought that was I don't know. I want to hear what you thought about that too, and what you guys thought. I really like a lot of what he has to say on interpretation of stuff like that. You know, he like especially when he was talking about how the dreams have different meaning. I love how he interprets all of that kind of stuff. I've never thought of it that way before, but it makes a lot of sense to me. I like it a lot, honestly. This idea that the first one is speaking about his brothers on Earth coming and bowing down to him in Egypt, and the second one being kind of a more futuristic term one, like it's the stars and the sun and the moon, like it's a more heavenly picture of something to come. You know, honestly, I could see it. I absolutely could see that being a thing. But yeah, no, it's interesting because I kind of interpreted it a lot differently than he did whenever it came to the timing of this. So I'd be really like, I mean, I'm not saying one of us is right over the other, but he was saying about how this does take place after Rachel's death, and after Benjamin's born. And if that's the case, then this is like, if you, depending on how you interpret that, if this is before Rachel's death or after Rachel's death, that does kind of change the interpretation of the dream, right? Because Jacob would either be rebuking him, saying like, why are you talking about your dead mother? Like, why would she be bowing down to you? That's ridiculous. But if she's not dead yet, then it still has a connotation of like, yeah, the whole family's going to be bowing down to me. But yeah, no, that's interesting, because then that also gives like a different idea of up here, because I was assuming it's saying, you know, Joseph being the son of his old age, right? Like the son of his old age. I was picturing, oh, well, Benjamin's not born yet, Rachel's still alive, and that's why specifically Joseph's being treated well, because he's the only son of his old age so far. But yeah, I guess that is really interesting, like how you place this in relation to the other stories. So yeah, I mean, maybe like I have a Matthew Henry commentary pulled up on the right side, so we can go through that, and then I also have the other commentary that we'll go through as well. Zev, yeah, she's one of the Bachelorettes. She's super sweet. Okay, is she like one of the best people to marry in Stardew Valley? Actually, I'll do that later. Yeah, you'll have to update me on that. Maybe you can give me some help for whenever we get to Stardew Valley. So what are your thoughts?
I mean, I don't know. It's like, it's interesting speculation, but I don't know that any of that you can really know for sure. It's interesting to think about, though.
So what about what you were talking about earlier that you wanted more time to think about?
Oh, the Jacob versus Israel thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like, I have a whole thing, so if it doesn't make sense, just bear with me.
Okay.
Jacob's name change, I feel like, is different than other ones, specifically because of like Jacob meaning deceiver, and I can't remember what Israel means. Do you remember what Israel means? It's something.
Can probably just scroll up and see it.
And so.
Oh gosh, that's gonna be really far up.
No, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. But the identity of Jacob becomes different. Like, he becomes a new person. But at the same time, I think this is just my, like, observation that it's almost like his name is being used as if God was allowing Jacob to live into the full reality of himself, even as his old name, but he's also still Israel at the same time. But he's like redeeming him on both ends. Like, Israel is his new name, but he's also redeeming who was Jacob. And because he's still himself, right? Like, and I don't know if this is making sense, but it's kind of like us when we have like struggles and we like give them to the Lord, but we still have to continue to do that every day, like, of our life, and God continues to show up for us in that, but we're still ourselves. Like, Jacob is still Jacob, but he's also still Israel. Like, he's still his old self, but is also still his new self. It's kind of just like this thing where, like, we're living into our new self every day, but we still have old patterns. And I just, like, I don't know if I'm making sense, but I just feel like it's a dichotomy of, like, he is both at the same time, and just like we are both at the same time. Almost like a reminder of you're not always gonna be the new, and like you're gonna still struggle. Gosh, like, I'm reminded of, tell me to stop if I'm like going.
No, go for it.
It's like Peter, right? Like Simon Peter. There was one time, I think, like when it was Caesarea Philippi, and Jesus asked Peter, like, who do you say that I am? Like, there was one point, I think, that Jesus called Peter Simon again after he was already renamed Peter, because he did something as to portray a characteristic of something that his Simon self would do. And he called him his old name again. And, like, I don't know for sure if that's true, but I feel like it is, and I'm just, like, remembering that. I just feel like we're two people. Like, we're ourself without God, and we're what we struggle with, but then also we're who we are empowered by the Lord. But it's okay to be both at the same time.
Well, yeah, and like,
sorry guys, that was really
no, don't apologize. Don't apologize. No, so Zev has some comments back. Zev comments, and he's like kind of like Saul and Paul. Saul killed the people, not Paul. He was changed, right?
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
also, oh gosh, what is that? Zev, do you see that? Can you help me out? Sorry, I'm gonna try and make the comments if you see that and you can help out with that, because I don't know what that is. So like when I misstep, I'm the old me, but when I don't, I'm the me in Christ. I think like Paul would probably talk quite a bit about that. Like the idea is, you know, Paul talks about how we have to kill our flesh every day so that the spirit might live inside of us. Like the idea is that we still have the fleshly part of us that tries to act in one way, and we still have the spirit that wants to work inside of us, right? Like I think that would absolutely. And Zev says I vibe with the idea, and Altus is confirming new name, new chapter. So Zev, do you see that? Can you help me out? The sons of Jacob, the go-around kids. Gosh, what in the world was that?
Howdy, Parker.
Oh, hey, Dietrich, how's it going tonight?
Good.
Thanks for joining us. Yo, we're talking about Joseph tonight.
Who?
We're talking about Joseph tonight.
Okay.
That was interesting. That was really interesting. Never had something like that happen before. Anyways, sons of deception versus when it says the sons of Israel, the ones who had integrity and faces things head on. I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, Zev, I was going to say, like, I have no idea what in the world. That was, like, out of nowhere. That's so weird. Anyways, so I saw, I have this Word on Fire commentary that I really enjoy, and it has, like, a whole bunch of different commentators that come and talk about stuff. So I saw one thing that I wanted to read through real quick. I actually don't know who this is, but it's like an early church father from 470 to 542, it says. Saint Caesarius of Arles. And this is from one of his sermons. The sun, moon, and stars bowed down. I'll just read it word for word because I think it's really interesting. Joseph had another dream in which the sun, the moon, and 11 stars worshipped him. His father replied to him, "Shall we indeed come, I, your mother, and your brothers, and bow to the ground before you?" This could not be fulfilled in that Joseph, but in our true Joseph, that is, our Lord Jesus Christ. The mysteries of that dream were fulfilled. The sun, the moon, and 11 stars worshipped him, when after the resurrection, Holy Mary as the moon, blessed Joseph as the sun, and 11 stars, that is, the blessed apostles, bent down and prostrated before him. Then was fulfilled the prophecy, which said, "Praise him, sun, moon, and praise him, all you shining stars." Psalm 148:3. The interpretation of this dream was not accomplished in that Joseph was the important reason that we read his mother had died many years before he saw the aforementioned dreams. Truly, how could it happen to his brothers that they should adore him like the stars, since the night of envy had made them obscure and gloomy? They had lost the brightness of the stars because they had extinguished in themselves the light of charity. We truly believe that this was deservedly fulfilled in our Lord and Savior, for as I have already said, we read that blessed Joseph, blessed Mary, and the 11 apostles worshipped him quite frequently. That the apostles possessed the light of the stars, and our Lord himself tells us in the gospel, "You are the light of the world." Again, he says, concerning the same men and those who are similar, then the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. So I thought that was really interesting. And honestly, Altus, I feel like that goes along with a lot of what you were saying. Like, it's not exactly what you were saying, Altus, but I feel like, honestly, it is very similar in a lot of ways. Like the idea that it's a future prophecy not meant for Joseph, but for Jesus, right? But yeah, no, I thought that was really interesting, so I was just reading over it. I wanted to read it back to you guys. There's another thing in here. If you guys want me to read it, I can as well, but it's a lot longer. So I won't have to read that one, because we also have Matthew Henry that we've got to get through as well. I love Dietrich so much. He's amazing, but like not in a weird way. So there you go, Dietrich. You got a compliment. Woo! Thank you. He appreciates it. So yeah, I thought that was cool. I don't really have like many thoughts on that other than just I wanted to read it because I thought it was cool and interesting to hear that. But yeah, so if you guys want, I can read through Matthew Henry on this particular section and then go through the rest of the passage. So I guess I'll just start reading Matthew Henry as well. In Joseph's history, we see something of Christ, who was first humbled and then exalted. It also shows the lot of Christians who must, through many tribulations, enter into the kingdom. It is a history that has none like it, for displaying the various workings of the human mind, both good and bad, and the singular providence of God in making use of them for fulfilling his purposes. Though Joseph was his father's darling, yet he was not bred up in idleness. Those do not truly love their children who do not use them in busyness and labor and hardships. The fondling of children is with good reason called the spoiling of them, those who are trained up to do nothing and likely to be good for nothing. So, interesting. I haven't read this yet, but I guess Matthew Henry's talking about the fact that Joseph was not raised properly for the time period, I think is what he's saying. I'd be curious to see where he's going with this, but I guess to break it down, I think that's what he's saying, is this idea that Joseph was more spoiled and exalted, unlike his brothers who were like actually taught how to do good labor. Anyways, I'll just keep reading and see where he goes with it. But Jacob made known by his love, by dressing Joseph finer than the rest of his children. It is wrong for parents to make a difference between one child and another unless there is a great cause for it, by the children's dutifulness and undutifulness. Okay, so like I see where he's going now, and it makes sense. So he's saying that like Jacob was wrong to treat some of his children more favorably than the other, and that it causes these kind of rivalries and these kinds of problems within the family because he's treating one better than the rest of his other children. When parents make a difference, children soon notice it, and it leads to quarrels in families. Jacob's sons did just that when they were found under his eye, okay, that's weird old English stuff with Matthew Henry. When they were from under his eye. So essentially he's saying Jacob's sons did act on these quarrels with Joseph whenever they were not in Jacob's sight, which they durst not have done, so they would not have done it at home with Jacob. Right, so they did this action whenever they were not in the sight of Jacob, who was the one who loved him the most. But Joseph gave his father an account of their ill conduct, that he might restrain them, not as a talebearer to sow discord, but as a faithful brother. So Altus is commenting back on what we were reading earlier. He says he agrees with the brother and apostles' connection, but the mother and father would be the matriarchs and patriarchs, including Jacob and Sarah, Rebecca and Rachel, etc. And the brothers are all of Israel, but adopted by a promise and the natural born. Right, so I think like it can be a both and, right? Because the 12 apostles were meant to be like a symbol of the 12 tribes of Israel, right? In the same way that, Israel, Jacob, who we're talking about right now, and his 12 sons become the 12 tribes of Israel. Jesus is like shepherding in the new Israel, and his 12 disciples are the new 12 tribes of Israel. Like it's a symbolism that he's bringing forward something similar. So I think it could be like a both and, right? Like the idea is that it is the 12 apostles, but also symbolizing the entire brothers being all of Israel, right? Because the 12 apostles were the symbol for the new Israel, right? The 12 tribes, both adopted by a promise and the natural born, or the heavenly Israel, Gentiles grafted in, and the earthly Israel, natural versus earthly born Israel. Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. But yeah, I think it could be both in my mind. Like it could be both the 12 apostles and also the symbol of the brothers of all Israel. Theoretically. So actually, Altus, I want to ask you something very specifically odd, because I feel like you would be the one to maybe understand this, since I know you also speak Hebrew. But the NRSV, which is the translation that we're reading from, it does not translate the coat to be a coat of many colors, right? It translates it to be a robe with a long robe with sleeves, right? And I remembered this earlier because whenever I was studying Hebrew this summer, one of the translations we had to do was of this passage, and it the one word it gave a definition for it. Gosh, how do you say that? Pasim. So the word that they use for many-colored, or whatever they translate it as, is pasim. And the definition it gave in my definitions was meaning unknown. Perhaps A, many-colored, B, decorated with needlework, or C, extending to the wrists and ankles, right? And there's some translations that translate it to be a coat of many colors, right? And then the translation that we're reading here, the NRSV, translated as, you know, a long robe. So I'm interested if, like, you've heard of that before and where you've come to understand it, being someone who's, like, actually studied this and who knows the language a lot better than I do. But I noticed that as I was reading it, because so part of me doing Hebrew this summer, I had to translate that passage. And as I translated it, I came across that, and then my book said that, right? My book said this word has multiple meanings. It doesn't have multiple meanings, but it could mean multiple things. So I was like, well, I've always heard many colors growing up, so I'll translate it many colors. But this translation doesn't translate it that way. It says long robe. So I was curious if you've talked about that before, if you have an idea. But Zev says, a coat of many colors that my mama made for me, made from only tags, but I wore it so proudly. Wait, do you have a picture of that? I'd love to see that. So many colors should be probably more rendered as decorated or luxurious. Okay, so that was actually one of the definitions that it gave in the book. So, like, the 3 definitions it gave in my book was that it could mean either many-colored, very long, or, like, elaborately decorated with needlework. So you're saying it would be the 3rd, that it would be, like, elaborately decorated. So it's interesting. We have 3 opinions now, because, like, I have, like, the translation I've read from previously that says many-colored. I have the NRSV, which I'm reading from now, that says long robe. And you're saying that it's decorated. And the book says it could be any of the 3. So that's interesting that now there's an opinion on all 3 sides. Made only from rags. Oh, okay. That makes more sense. That makes a lot more sense. That's interesting. Yeah, if you have a picture of that, I'd love to see it. You should send it in Discord. Huh. So, wait, where were we over here? Okay, so Matthew Henry continues here. God gave Joseph betimes the prospect of his advancement to support and comfort him under his long and grievous troubles. Observe, Joseph dreamed of his preferment, but he did not dream of his imprisonment. Okay, so that's interesting. Thus, many young people, when setting out in the world, think of nothing but prosperity and pleasure, and never dream of the trouble. His brethren rightly interpreted the dream, though they abhorred the interpretation of it. While they committed crimes in order to defeat it, they were themselves the instruments of accomplishing it. Thus the Jews understood what Christ said of his kingdom, determined that he should not reign over them. They consulted to put him to death, and by his crucifixion made way for the exaltation they designed to prevent. Okay, so the idea is... See, this is why I like reading the Matthew Henry whenever we do this, because even though it's, like, hard to read and interpret, he usually has opinions that are really interesting to consider. Right? Like, he's comparing this to 2 things. First of all, to people nowadays who, you know, they're young, they're adamant, they have a vision, they want to go for it, but they only dream of the good things that come with it. They don't dream of the troubles that will come along with it, right? And second of all, this idea that the brothers didn't like the dream and they wanted to prevent it, but in trying to prevent it, they actually furthered its advancement. And in the same way, relating that to Christ, in that the people who wanted to put him to death to stop what he was talking about were actually furthering the advancement of that message by doing what they did. That is definitely not a correlation that I would have made on my own. It's a Dolly Parton song, and I picture it being like, oh, okay, I see what you're saying. So that's a line from a song, not actually something that happened to you. Never mind. We see similar verbiage in Talmudic writings speaking of what one is obligated to wear for Shabbat, and also in Esther, which speaks of royal curtains in the same way. But there is an interesting correlation with that as well, because the royal curtains were white and blue wool hanging down, and most laws are based on remembering something. So if we look to Joseph as being a standard for a law somewhere, then we can ask which law likens us to wearing a remembrance of white and blue hanging thing. So you're saying you believe that his coat was decorated elaborately because if it is elaborately decorated as white and blue wool, it is a foreshadowing of the curtains in the tabernacle and in the temple, which were part of the law later on, in the same way that sacrifices earlier on and other things are foreshadows of what the law of Moses will one day be. Tell me if I'm saying that right. It is based on a royal coat. I'll send it to you just as in mine. Okay, I see what you're saying. Gotcha. Yeah, I'd love to see it. What do you got?
Nothing right now.
Okay. Yeah, you can feel free to jump in anytime.
Okay.
I guess I have to specify, she is also Masters of Divinity. She's actually further ahead than me because she already graduated with the Masters of Divinity. I'm still suffering through the program, so she's like actually smarter than me at this kind of stuff. So that's why she's here.
I don't know about that.
I mean, you already got the degree. You've done all the work. I'm still over here
Yeah.
I'm still a first year student, you know, struggling my way through.
So do you guys just like kind of just ask questions and talk about different questions like throughout the whole, is that kind of the flow of,
it's just kind of a
okay.
Bible study, you know. We discuss, we ask questions, you know. Why do you picture we should do something different?
No, I'm just asking, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of just like read through we have like somewhat of a structure. Like we'll chat for a little bit and wait for people to come in, and then we'll read through, and then we'll pray, and then we'll read through the passage, and then we just kind of talk about it by reading commentaries and asking questions, and then once we kind of get to the end, then we kind of do like a whole ending thing. But
Okay, cool.
yeah. So like you know, we always encourage people like can just talk and ask questions and whatnot. Like what I always say is that there's no such thing as a stupid question unless if I ask it.
No, there's no such thing as a stupid question, period.
Unless if I ask it.
Why?
Because it's funny.
There's no such
Well,
thing
listen,
as a stupid question.
listen. Here, psychologically, right? I could just tell chat there's no such thing as a stupid question, and then they're like, oh, well, maybe I can ask a question. Like it's more serious that way. But if I make it a joke, like making the point, yeah, there is no such thing as a stupid question. So feel free to ask whatever you want. But also, I'm making a joke about it, making it more lighthearted. Like, except if I ask it, then it's a stupid question. Like, you know, it makes it not as serious.
I see.
So it's possible you can conclude that, oh gosh, I don't know how to say that. That's probably a Hebrew word I don't know. Might be related to Joseph's story in wearing his robe in a way and preserving to the end and becoming royalty by doing so. White strings with a blue string made of wool tied to remember all the laws of God, which we are to tie on the four corners in order to remember to preserve in all the laws, and our reward is royalty of sorts. Well, I'm just a heretical nerd who studies all day and likes to spread heresies. That's what, you know, that's what we do. We all have all these different opinions, and that's what I love about this Bible study, is that we do really have people of all these different backgrounds with all these different interpretations, and we can just like go at it. Like, and we talked about this last night. I would rather have all these different opinions and different interpretations talking about it together than like 20 people who just agree on everything. You know, it challenges our assumptions and gives us new interpretations and helps us to understand it better. You know, I like it. Oh gosh, so now we're kind of getting into Numbers 15:39 to 41 is, oh, interesting. So is it like on the similar lines as like the Shema? Like just a really popular saying that has its own name? Because I do know about the Shema. I'm assuming that's what you're saying. So there's a lot of commentary in the word on Fire commentary, actually. So I'll read a real quick thing, since we're getting into the second part of the passage now where Joseph is sold by his brothers. There's a little part in the Word on Fire that I want to read real quick. It's really short. By St. Ambrose. So, I mean, some people who, like, you've probably heard that name before if you know about early church history, because St. Ambrose was a bigger name. But this is St. Ambrose on Joseph. They stripped him of his robe. Even at that time, the cross that was to come was prefigured in a sign. And at the same time that Jesus was stripped of his tunic, that is, of the flesh he took on, he was stripped of the handsome diversity of colors that represented the virtues. Therefore, his tunic, that is his flesh, was stained with blood, but not his divinity, and his enemies were able to take from him his covering of flesh, but not his immortal life. So that's a little early church interpretation of the passage and relating it to Christ. So essentially they're saying, as the brothers were able to take off his coat and stain it with blood, they were not able to take his life. In the same way that as Christ was bloodied and had his life taken from him, his divinity was not stained as a result. Which is a cool message. There's also, so the Word on Fire does this every once in a while, where it talks about a famous art piece. So there's I've never heard of this one before. It's by Diego oh gosh, I'm not gonna be able to say that. It's a Spanish. Velázquez?
Yeah, Velázquez.
Velázquez. Okay, there we go. So Diego Velázquez. Gotcha. So he's a Spanish artist, but apparently this is a very famous piece that I don't know about. And it's Joseph's bloody coat brought to Jacob. So let me try and show you the picture of it real quick. I don't know if you guys will be able to see it well or not. But that's it. Hopefully you guys are able to see it. I'm not sure. But there's commentary on it, right? So the commentary says, in this canvas by Spanish master Diego Velázquez, we witness Jacob's heartbreak as the blood-stained coat of Joseph is revealed. Utterly shocked by what he sees, Jacob throws up his arms, his staff falling to the ground. In a vehemently ironic deception, the brothers convince Jacob of Joseph's untimely death by desecrating the very symbol of his paternal pride. Perhaps most striking is how Velázquez portrays the body language of the two brothers furthest to the right. They stand in the shadows as if to avoid Jacob's line of sight. Their expressions are suspicious. One brother looks down and away with a knuckle pressed uneasily to his upper lip. The other looks at the faces of the two who step forward with the coat, cynically uninterested in the bloodied garment. While Joseph's coat evokes shock and horror in the eyes of Jacob, to the brothers it is nothing more than a prop. In this painting, we see the true depths of the brothers' envy. Not only has their jealousy led them to sell Joseph as a slave, it has enticed them to inflict the worst possible grief on their father. Yet it is against the backdrop of darkness that God's providence will shine out, transforming the brothers' evil scheme into a journey of reconciliation and healing, and ultimately the salvation of his chosen people. Moreover, what began as a plot to dispense with Joseph will only ensure his preservation, and what was intended to degrade Joseph's identity will only exalt his status as the greatest of the brothers. Similarly, what was meant to rob Jacob of his happiness will only magnify his delight later in the story. Little does Jacob know his son is not dead, but very much alive. When they meet again, Joseph will be clothed in the full regalia of an Egyptian ruler, robed in greater honor than fatherly favoritism could ever bestow upon him. Gosh, that's why I love this commentary. That was really cool. Numbers 15:38-41 is the command, but it seems to be tied to the robe of Joseph, which led them into Egypt, which then received salvation from the famine by God. Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, I guess we'll get to that at some point. No, that's interesting. I've never heard about that one before. That's new to me. I definitely want to look into that. Probably like when I get the time. That sounds fascinating. There's a little bit more commentary in this one, but I want to make sure that we have enough time to talk about everything, so I might not go over it just yet. We'll see. So, I'm trying to see what would probably be the best parts. Oh, actually, you know what? There is something I want to talk about. Oh, wait, before I do that. So, okay, who sold Joseph? So let me get to that part again. Where is it? Okay, then they sat down to eat, and looking up they saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead, with their camels carrying gum, balm, and resin on their way to carry it down to Egypt. Then Judah said to his brothers, "What profit is it if we kill our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and not lay our hands on him, for he is our brother and our own flesh." And his brothers agreed. When some Midianite traders passed by, they drew Joseph up, lifting him up out of the pit, and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver, and they took Joseph to Egypt. When Reuben returned to the pit and saw that Joseph was not in the pit, he tore his clothes and returned to his brothers and said, "The boy is gone, and where can I turn?" Then they took Joseph's robe, slaughtered a goat, and dipped the robe in the blood. They had the long robe with sleeves taken to their father, and they said, "This we have found. See now whether it is your son's robe or not." Okay, so the idea is, who sold Joseph? Well, Reuben was not there. It was Judah's idea. Although it does say they drew Joseph up, lifted him up out of the pit, and sold him to the Ishmaelites. So theoretically, it could be all the brothers but Reuben and Benjamin, obviously. I mean, it's possible, I guess. Where is Reuben in verse 25 to 27? I wonder if he says anything on that. So Matthew Henry talks about it. They threw Joseph into a pit to perish there with hunger and cold. So cruel were their tender mercies. They slighted him when he was in distress, and were not grieved for the affliction of Joseph. For when he was pining in the pit, they sat down to eat bread. They felt no remorse of conscience for their sin, but the wrath of man shall praise God, and the remainder of wrath he will restrain. Joseph's brethren were wonderfully restrained from murdering him, and their selling him as wonderfully turning to God's praise. Reuben in verse 22 is with them so that he might rescue him out of their hand. Yeah, no, so the idea is, so Reuben, it was Reuben's idea to not kill him, but to put him into the pit. And then for some reason, Reuben leaves. So they sat down to eat, and looking up they saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming. Then Judah said to his brothers, "What profit is if we kill him?" Right? So Reuben says, "Let's not kill him, let's put him in the pit." Then Judah has the idea, "Let's still not kill him, but actually let's sell him." But then Reuben comes back and sees what they've done without him being there. So the idea is somehow Reuben's gone, and Judah has the idea to sell him. But it seems to me that it is all the brothers who were there, right? So assuming Benjamin wasn't there and Reuben wasn't there, it would have been, what, 9 of them? 9 of the brothers that decided to lift him up out of the pit and sell him into slavery? First, let's murder. Okay, never mind. Second, let's leave him in a pit. Okay, never mind. Third, let's sell him. Oh, wait, where did he go? Yeah, so Reuben, I guess Reuben wouldn't have been there to make this decision to take him up and sell him. I mean, my best assumption would just be to say that it was the 9 brothers. The 9 brothers that were not Reuben, not Benjamin, and obviously not Joseph. So if you take those 3 out of the picture, it seems that it is definitely multiple brothers who did it. So my idea would just be that it's all of them but them. Did Reuben leave? He returns to his brothers, which implies he was with them first. Then he left to go get Joseph. And then he found he was missing and then told his brothers. Yeah, so like, grammatically, they pulled him out was the Midianites. Oh, so the Midianite traders passed by. They drew up Joseph, lifted him up out of the pit, and sold him to the Ishmaelites. Oh. I see what you're saying now. I see what you're saying now. So the idea is, well, it still would have had to have been multiple of the brothers, because Judah said to his brothers, "What profit it is if we do this? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay our hands on him, for he is our brother." So it's still, and his brothers agreed, right? So this line alone says that it had to have been multiple of the brothers that sold him. because it specifically says, and his brothers agreed with, so Judah said to his brothers, what profit is if we kill our brother? Come, let us sell him. And then down here, and his brothers agreed. So it still seems to me that it would have been whatever brothers happened to be with Judah. Right? Is what I would say. But I don't know, honestly. I guess it is kind of vague. I mean, other than Judah, we don't know. Other than that it was Judah. Well, it had to have been at least 3 of them, because it's Judah and brothers, right? So Judah plus at least 2 of his brothers had to be in line to do it. They planned to sell him. Reuben goes to rescue him as he originally planned. Reuben planned to return to the pit and return him to his father, but Reuben gets there and realizes he is gone and then tells his brothers. Right. So possibly they put him into the pit and got back to work, right? Possibly what happened is that they put Joseph in the pit, then they went back to work and split up. Then Judah has the idea to sell him and tells some of his brothers to do so. So Judah and whatever brothers he tells go back and sell him. And then Reuben at another point goes back to check on him, sees he's not there, goes back and tells his brothers that he's not there. So, presumably, you know, because it says, and they sat down to eat, looking up they saw the cavern. So, you know, they had to have put him in the pit and then gone back to go work or eat or whatnot, right? His brothers don't say, oh, here's your cut, or we sold him. All we know is Midianites took him out and sold him to the Ishmaelites. Joseph's brothers wanted to sell him to the Ishmaelites. Yeah, exactly. So the idea is that not everybody was in on it, right? Because Reuben, at the very least, wasn't in on it. Yeah. They never agreed to sell him to the Midianite. Well, it does say that some of them did, right? And his brothers agreed, right? So then Judah said to his brothers, what profit is if we kill our brother and conceal his blood? Let us come sell him to the Ishmaelites, you know, and his brothers agreed. So whatever brothers were with him, so why are the Midianites there? So when the Midianite traders passed by, they drew up Joseph, lifted him up out of the pit, and sold him to the Ishmaelites, and they took Joseph to Egypt. Well, I mean, he's still sold to the Ishmaelites. I don't know why the Midianite traders are there, but at the very least, the brothers agreed to sell him, the Midianite traders took him out of the pit, and then sold him to the Ishmaelites. So the Ishmaelites still got him, right? He was still sold to the Ishmaelites. The Midianites, just for some reason, were the ones who traded the money. Maybe the reason that the Midianite traders needed to do it is because the brothers didn't have silver pieces. So they had to speak to the Midianite traders to get the 20 pieces of silver. Or something like that. It is interesting, though. That's for sure. What does this part talk about again? Oh, okay, this is the broader Joseph story, not just this section. Yeah, I guess we're kind of done with this commentary. There's not really anything else left here. Kind of went through all that stuff. To further the case, the brothers don't seem to be aware that Joseph was sold to Egypt when they meet him again. Okay, so that would be chapters down the line. Well, I mean, it seems to me that, I mean, this is just my interpretation, but it seems to me Judah and some of his brothers did this plot to sell his brother, and they used the Midianite traders to do the trade to the Ishmaelites. But Judah and the brothers who enacted the plan didn't tell Reuben and whatever other brothers weren't involved in on the plan, right? Because, you know, like you're saying, the brothers didn't all know that he was in Egypt, and Reuben saw that Joseph wasn't there and tore his clothes, and then he turned to his brothers and said, the boy is gone, and then they took Joseph's robe and slaughtered a goat and dipped his blood. You know, so the idea is, even at this point, the brothers, Judah and whatever brothers sold him, didn't know didn't tell Reuben that they sold him. And presumably maybe some of the other brothers didn't know as well, because it just specifically says that Reuben returned to the pit and saw that Joseph wasn't there, and then he returned to his brothers and said this. So Reuben was specifically the one that went to go check on Joseph, but maybe other brothers didn't know as well. So maybe Judah and some of the brothers sold him, and then they didn't tell the other brothers that they did it, right? That would be what I would assume would be the case. They only say, we didn't listen to his cries in the pit, and we left him for dead. They never have any guilt over selling him or even mentioned it as something that happened. Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, I think that's the point of the story, is that, like we were just reading in the commentary, this idea that the brothers do this whole thing, but they feel no remorse for doing so. Like, the ones who actually did commit the act, whether it was all the brothers or not, they feel no remorse for it. Rashbam is the champion of this concept. It's a lesser accepted one, but he makes a very compelling case. Unfortunately, you can't find any of his writings in English. It's only available in Hebrew. I was going to say, I haven't heard of Rashbam, to be honest. But I mean, yeah, that would be how I would figure it out. I would say some of the brothers were, like, all the brothers agreed to put him in the pit. Only some of the brothers sold him into slavery. The other ones didn't know, right? But that's why all of the brothers have to agree to dip his robe in blood and tell their father that they found the robe, because every single one of the brothers was in charge of putting him in the pit, right? So, you know, the fact that he's gone out of the pit, whether all the sons sold him into slavery or not, it was their fault that he was put in the pit and taken, right? So half the brothers know that he was sold. The other half of the brothers think, oh, somebody took him out of the pit. He's gone, right? No matter what, all the brothers are at fault. So they have to come up with this scheme to deceive their father, whether they were all in on the selling him or not. Although it does say down here that the Midianites were here again. Meanwhile, the Midianites had sold him in Egypt to Potiphar. Does that just mean... Hang on. Where was that at again? Oh, okay, I get it. Okay, it makes sense now. I understand why the Midianite traders were important. The Midianite traders took him out of the pit, and then they didn't sell him to the Ishmaelites until they got to Egypt, right? Because it says, meanwhile, the Midianites had sold him in Egypt to Potiphar, right? So the Midianites were there because they came by, the brothers sold him to the Midianite traders, and then the Midianite traders took him to Egypt and sold him to the Ishmaelites there in Egypt. So that's why the Midianite traders are there. They weren't there to mediate a deal. They took him, and then they sold him in Egypt. So that makes sense now, like reading this final comment, why the Midianites were there. I hold to Rashbam's concept because it also ties into the messianic foreshadowing. Brothers want to take payment and sell him. They agree to it, but they never get to spend money. And when the brothers get to the pit, he is already missing. The brothers didn't pull him out, he is just missing. Someone else, not their brother, pulled him out. Otherwise, the resurrection. Interesting. So you're saying Rashbam's idea is that the brothers didn't actually get to enact their plan to sell him at all. So the idea is Judah and his brothers said that they would sell him to the Ishmaelites, and then that's one half of the story. And then there's a second story that's going on, where the Midianite traders passed by, found Joseph, took him, and sold him. And the brothers didn't get to actually enact their plan to sell him. So whenever Reuben comes by and sees that he's gone, all of the brothers are like, oh, he's gone. I've never thought of it that way before. I mean, you could read it that way. Like, you definitely could read it that this is one half of the story, the brothers' plan, and then this other half is the Midianites' plan. It is interesting, though, why this line would be here then, though. Because theoretically, you wouldn't really need this line. Like, if the brothers weren't involved in selling him, then these lines wouldn't feel necessary. Like, you could just leave these lines out, and then it would read, "Then they sat down to eat. Looking up, they saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead with their camels carrying this on their way down to Egypt. And then when some Midianite traders passed by, they drew up Joseph out of the pit and took him down to Joseph to Egypt." Like, theoretically, this line wouldn't need to be here, I feel like, if the brothers weren't involved in it somehow. Like, to me, the brothers would have to be involved for these lines to be here. But I guess you, like, theoretically, you could read it that way. Like, you could read it that way if you wanted to. Jesus isn't pulled out by his brothers, and he is betrayed for a plan of greed, but ultimately never profited off the plan. Yeah. No, I mean, I completely agree with that. I completely agree that this is kind of like a foreshadowing of Jesus, right? Even, like, the 20 pieces of silver, right? Like, even the 20 pieces of silver, like, Jesus was sold for... What, it was 20 pieces, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, Jesus was sold for 20 pieces of silver to be given away to be killed, right? So, like, I do agree with that part of it, that, like, Joseph is kind of a Jesus counterpart. And, like, a lot of the commentators were talking about the same thing, like Joseph's coat being a symbol of his divinity and humanity, right? Like, the idea that the brothers were able to strip his coat and dirty it, but they were never able to dirty or kill him. In the same way, Jesus' divinity was never touched. It was just his humanity that was bloodied, right? So I completely agree with that part. I'm trying to work on the other part. It's hard for me with these couple lines to completely agree that the brothers weren't involved, but I do see how you can read it that way. Like, I definitely could see that. It's definitely less It's definitely less accepted, and the headers in most Bibles say that Joseph sold by his brothers, and it drives the traditional understanding. Well, I mean, like, we talked about this yesterday. I have some outlandish, less accepted theories as well, too. So, like, I mean, who would I be to put down a less accepted theory whenever I do the same thing? But I see it, though. I do see it. Like, if the traditional understanding has always been that it is the brothers who sell him, then there would be very little room for people to interpret it differently. So, like, yeah, it would make sense to, like, title it that way. But, like, I mean, yeah, you could absolutely read it that way. Meanwhile, the Mennonites... Yep. So I guess I'll get to... I kind of want to read this last part. It's a little bit long, but I feel like usually Matthew Henry's longer parts are really good. So I kind of want to read this last part. So I'll just read it. When Satan had taught... And this is commentary on verses 31 starting, "Then they took Joseph's robe and slaughtered a goat, dipped it in blood," the whole way to the end of the chapter. That's where this commentary is. When Satan has taught men to commit one sin, he teaches them to try to conceal it with another, to hide theft and murder with lying and false oaths. But he that covers his sin shall not prosper long. Joseph's brethren kept their own and one another's counsel for some time, but their villainy came to light at last, and it is here published to the world. To grieve their father, they sent him Joseph's coat of colors, and he hastily thought, on seeing the bloody coat, that Joseph was rent in pieces. Let those that know the heart of a parent suppose the agony of poor Jacob. His sons baselessly pretended to comfort him, but miserable, hypocritical comforters were they all. Had they really desired to comfort him, they might at once have done it by telling the truth. The heart is strangely hardened by the deceitfulness of sin. Jacob refused to be comforted. Great affection to any creature prepares for so much the greater affliction. When it is taken from us or made bitter to us, undue love commonly ends in undue grief. It is the wisdom of parents not to bring up children delicately. They know not what hardships they may be brought before they die. From the whole of this chapter we see with wonder the ways of providence. The malignant brothers seem to have gotten their ends. The merchants who care not what they deal in so that they gain, have also obtained theirs. And Potiphar, having got a fine young slave, has obtained his, but God's designs are by these means in train for execution. This event shall end in Israel's going down to Egypt. That ends in their deliverance by Moses, that in setting up the true religion in the world, and that in the spread of it among all nations by the gospel. Thus the wrath of man shall praise the Lord, and the remainder thereof will he restrain. I always, like, Matthew Henry has a lot of cool things to say, I feel like. Even though it's as old as it is. Yeah, no, that's, I don't know. It's just fast, and I love his wording, too. I know it's just, like, older English, because it's, like, very old, but, like, it just comes across so cool. For future verses, there is a part later that says, "You, who sold me to Egypt, but the brothers never sold him to Egypt. But from his point of view, that's what they did. Toss him in a pit, and then people pull him out and sell him to Egypt. But the blame is on the brothers because they put him in the pit, and it was their actions that got him found and sold to Ishmaelites, who then sold him to Egypt." Yeah, no, it does make sense. Like, that's why I'm saying, I do completely understand how you can read it that way. Like, I've never thought of it that way before, but, like, I absolutely can see it being a thing. Essentially teaching that your sins have a butterfly effect that you are responsible for. Like, if you gossip, then you are responsible for everyone else that relays the information you started to spread. Yeah, like, I mean, we've talked about that a million times on this channel before, like, this idea that sins lead into more sin, and cause more pain, and they just have, like, this butterfly effect that just continues on. Which, speaking of, that's actually something that I haven't gotten to talk about this session, which you guys are probably getting sick of me talking about this, because I feel like I'm constantly bringing it up, but I constantly see it as we go through this Bible study, and I've never really seen this before reading through this, but I constantly see it now, is this idea of the generational sin. Like, we talk about this all the time, but for everyone else who, like, hasn't heard me talk about it before, I'll get you guys caught up real quick. It's this idea that, like, these different families of the Bible, and even, like, families today, tend to struggle with, like, the same types of sins. Like, father struggles with something, teaches it to the kid learns it and struggles with it, yada yada yada, right? Like, David and Solomon, they both struggled with women, right? Like, that was a thing that they had. But in Abraham's family, they all struggle with lying. Like, famously, every single one of them. Like, Abraham, whenever he messed up, it was because he lied. Like, there's two stories that paint Abraham in a bad light, and it's because he lies about his wife being his sister. And then Isaac does the exact same thing. Isaac lies about his wife being his sister, and that's the one bad story we get about Isaac. Like, we don't get any bad stories about Isaac except for that one. Jacob is very famously called the deceiver because he deceives everyone. Like, he does it all the time. And Laban, his uncle, does the same thing. He deceives Jacob into marrying the wrong daughter. And now his brother, Joseph's brothers, are deceiving Jacob in this ruse that that Joseph was killed in some horrible way. Like, it's just this, like, generational sin that is passed down, like, through the whole family. Like, the one thing they struggle with is lying and deceiving, and, like, even their own family. Like, Jacob deceived his father, he deceived his brother. Joseph's brothers are deceiving their own father. Like, it's just, like, all over the place. As we've done this whole Bible study, I constantly notice it every single time one of these stories gets brought up, is, like, this family struggles with the same thing every time they're brought up. I mean, like, there's odd stories. Like, Joseph's brothers had that story where they went out and killed the whole tribe, and that's a whole other thing. So that's one, like, that's a different occurrence. But at the same time, like, generally, they have struggled with lying and deceiving. Like, just every time they're brought up. I mean, Joseph's different. Joseph's is pretty much always painted in a good light. There's, like, nothing pretty much ever that's said bad about Joseph, so that's interesting. I mean, maybe you could argue his gloating about his dreams was a bad thing, but that really depends on how you read this story. That really depends on how you read this story. I'm trying to think if there was anything else. I don't know if I really had too much else. Oh yeah, this is a really short commentary from chapter 38. Interesting. So that'll be next week. I posted a chiasm in the Discord for you, but it starts at this story and goes through Deuteronomy and then showing the mirror of Messiah in it. Actually, you know what? I'll read that real quick before we end. Actually, this could be a good way to end. Unless if you guys have anything that you want to talk about, any questions or concerns or comments or anything, you can put those in there now. But otherwise, I'll like end our discussion by reading this chiasm real quick. And then we'll do the prayer requests and the announcements and stuff, and then go raid someone. You have anything too?
Not at the moment.
Did you think of anything this whole time we've been talking that you want to discuss?
No, I was just kind of listening.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have plenty of people who join into the chat just to listen, so you're not the only one. Sweet. All right, so I'll read it real quick. The Joseph redemption by Moses. First event of Joseph's life. Brothers hate Joseph and will not speak to him. The second part, he is told. Okay, actually, I'll read it. A to B, like A1, A2. I'll read it that way, like front to back, because then it will make more sense. So in the first event, Joseph's life, his brothers hate him and will not speak to him. The very end, the last events of Moses' life, Israel loves Moses and listens to every word he says in Deuteronomy. And then the second event, he is told he will be a leader over his brothers. Joseph is told he will be a leader over his brothers, and he joyfully accepts and tells his brothers, and they reject the idea. On the other hand, we have Moses, who is told he will be a leader over Israel, and he doesn't want to be the leader. He tells his brother Aaron and eventually accepts the idea. Third event in Joseph's life, he checks on his brothers, leading to his brothers wanting to murder him, put him in a dry well, but the Midianites come to him and save him from death in a pit. In Moses, he checks on the Israelites, leading to him killing an Egyptian to save his brothers. He goes to Midian and finds a filled well, which the Midianites then give him refuge. In the fourth one, Joseph becomes Egyptian royalty. In Moses, he becomes Egyptian royalty. After Joseph's death, he is put into a casket and placed in the Nile by an Egyptian. He is then taken out of the Nile by a Hebrew. On Moses' birth, he is eventually put into a basket and placed in the Nile by a Hebrew. He is then taken out by the Nile by an Egyptian.
Nice.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's actually really cool. We did a similar thing. Gosh, let me pull it out. I think, Altus, I don't know if you were here whenever we did this, but really, really early on in this channel, the one commentary I have talked about how Abraham's life is a giant chiasm, and I think you would love to hear it. This was a long time ago that we discussed this, so let me see if I can find it where it's at in this commentary. But it was so fascinating, like this idea that Abraham's entire life was a big chiasm. Gosh, I hope I can find it. I don't want to get your hopes up and then not actually be able to find it. Oh, here we go. So the chiasm in the Abraham story. There are a series of correspondence between different parts of the Abraham story where themes introduced at the outset of a narrative are resumed in reverse order in its second half. This chiastic pattern binds many parts of the Abraham story together and puts a heightened emphasis on the sections that occur in the center. So, at the very beginning, Abraham's first challenge is to leave his family of origin. Abraham's final challenge is a call to let go of the family of his future. Talking about Isaac. Then, right after Abraham's challenge to leave his family of origin, he has the story where he lies about his wife being his sister. And right before he's asked to sacrifice Isaac, he has the exact same thing happen where he lies about his wife being his sister. Then there's the story, like at the after that, in the beginning of the story, he has the separation from Lot. Whereas on the other end of it, in chapters 18 and 19, we have the hospitality and progeny stories where Abraham is contrasted with Lot. Then there's the two stories of the covenant with Abraham, the first one in chapters 14 and 15, and then the other one being the covenant of circumcision with Abraham in chapter 17. And then the middle of the story being the Hagar and Ishmael story in Genesis chapter 16. So that's the chiasm of Abraham's life. The Joseph casket put into the Nile is from the rabbinic oral tradition. The rest should be found in scripture. Oh, okay. Yeah, I was gonna say I never heard that idea that Joseph's casket was put into the Nile, but so that makes sense. That's a rabbinic oral tradition. There are so many good Abraham chiasms. Added another chiasm I wrote down regarding just Genesis 17 and the Abrahamic covenant. Abraham is 99 years old. Abraham falls on his face. Father of nations. Name change. Oh, wait. Okay, so I see what you're saying. So this is just chapter 17. I see. No, that makes sense. So he falls on his face. He's called, he will be the father of nations. His name is changed. Individuals will become the nations. And then there's the promise of the everlasting covenant. What God will do, you shall keep my covenant. What Abraham will do, this is my covenant. Everlasting covenant. I see. No, that makes sense. I get it. That's cool. It's a verse-by-verse breakdown of chapter 17. I see. Yeah, no, that's cool. See, that's like the beautiful stuff that I love about, you know, I mean, I talk about it all the time. Like, I love a good story. Like, one of my hobbies is movies and TV shows and dissecting, like, how good a story is. And, like, the more that I read the Bible in the light of it being one grand story, you know, I see stuff like that more and more often, and it's really cool. But yeah, so that's that. Let me swap back over here so that we can do announcements and prayer requests and whatnot. So first of all, also, chat, you guys were supposed to help me come up with a weekly challenge this week, and we still don't have one. So I'm counting on you guys. You guys have until I'm done with the prayer requests and the announcements to figure out a weekly challenge for this week, because we still don't have one. And we gotta come up with one tonight that we're all gonna do. So help me out with that one. Dietrich, you could help me out maybe with it too, if you're still here. So first announcement is the charity goal that we're working towards. So I'll put that in the chat. So you guys probably know about this by now. Well, actually, I guess I want to say before we get into the announcements, if you're new to the channel, you haven't been here before, I pray that you stay around just for a little bit. Not just to hear the announcements and the prayer requests, but also because whenever we end the stream, we always go raid another channel to bless their night. And I pray that you guys will stick with me just for a couple minutes so that we can go bless someone's night together. Because it really brightens up people's days, and I want to bless someone's night in the same way that you guys have blessed mine. So that's what we're going to do. But real quick, so we're raising money right now. If you want more information about the charity that we're raising, it's right there in the chat right now. You saw it above my head when we were doing the Bible study, the bar about how much we've gotten so far and how much we're still looking to get. But we are trying to raise money for that. It's not for an official organization. It's just something that me and my friends do, where we try to gather a whole bunch of goods and then hand them out to the less fortunate and the homeless who desperately need it, especially during Christmas time, whenever they might be trying to find books and toys for their kids, and whenever they're trying to find gloves and pillows and blankets and stuff to stay warm. So that's what we're trying to raise money for. We're trying to get a whole bunch of money so that we can do that. And if you want to donate to it, any money that we make off of this channel, 100% of it is donated directly to that cause. So it is not just direct donations that go toward that cause. It is also any subscriptions that we get. It is any bits that we get, anything. No matter what money we get from this channel, 100% of it is going towards this charity. So just know that your money is going towards a good cause. As for prayer requests, if you guys don't know already, we have a prayer request section on our Discord where people can come by and they can put in prayer requests that they would like us to be praying for. So I will go through those real quick and then also mention any prayer requests that we have that are not in the Discord. So starting off at the beginning, we have Cole, which, you know, he stopped by earlier. We love him. An amazing community member of ours. He has a couple prayer requests. He has a prayer request for a friend who's having trouble with some of his relationships. That's all we know about that one. But he also has an unspoken prayer request that we want to be praying for. And very recently, just yesterday, he put in a prayer request for his mom. No other information about that either. But we want to be praying for one of Cole's friends. We want to be praying for Cole's mom. And we want to be praying for an unspoken for him. Evan, as always, as we mentioned earlier, you know, one of the people who helps run this channel with me, he hasn't been able to stop by for a while because he's been dealing with a lot of recurring health issues and a lot of illness. He might have to have a surgery in about a month or so. So we really want to be praying for him that, you know, all of that can become a lot better and that the pain will be lessened. Zev, also, who was here pretty much all of today, has a prayer request. Two, actually. So Zev has a prayer request for him and his family because his great aunt just passed away not all that long ago. So they're struggling with a lot with that. But a praise also, Zev's grandma had surgery for cancer, and very recently we found out that she's cancer free. So that's a huge praise right there. I feel like a big part of that might have been our prayer. So that's why we do this. There's also a couple prayer requests for that I put in for the church that I've been attending. There's an organization that's been stopping by. I don't remember the name of it. Do you remember the organization?
The organization.
The one that's raising the money for the Congo.
Oh, it's called Dreams of My Homeland.
It's called Dreams of My Homeland. That's the name of the organization. They're trying to raise money to build schools in the Congo. I was saying that I could forward money to them, but I don't know if I can do that anymore, so I ignore that part of it. But please be praying for them as they try to raise money for that. And we also have a prayer request from our Toxic Family, who always comes by. That's their name. I'm not just calling them that. They call themselves the Toxic Family. They're amazing, and I love them. But they are asking for prayer for one of their cats because there's a lot of things going on with their cat right now, and they can't pay for the money to take it to the vet. So be praying for them with that. We also have a prayer request for the Special Medics missions trip. The Special Medic is not a community member of ours, but he is a channel that we raided not that long ago. So, we go raid channels after the stream, we chat with them for a little bit, and he let us know that he is trying to raise money for a missions trip. If you guys want to be praying for that, you can be. But also, if you want to donate money to it, I will put his name in the chat right now. So this is the guy. If you want to go search him up and you want to go find this channel and donate any money to that missions trip, please feel free to do so. And also, we have a prayer request for Viking, who came by a couple weeks ago, and he talked a lot about a lot of stuff that was going on in his life and some of the depression that he's been facing. So we really want to be praying for Viking as he tries to work through all of that. I can't think of any other prayer requests that we have at the moment. I think that's all of them. So yeah, and if you guys have any other prayer requests that you want us to know about, you can put them in the chat right now, or we also have the Discord, which is always open as well. If you want to join that, we have the prayer request section there, and all of the other different channels that we talk in with the weekly challenge and different podcasts and books that we recommend for each other as well. There's a lot of stuff that we do in there. So if you want to join that, you can. If you want to put the prayer requests in there, or if you want to put any prayer requests in the Discord while we're talking for a second. But yeah, I guess we still haven't had the weekly challenge that we usually do. So just thinking on the spot, we'll keep it really simple this week. I just want you guys to go out of your way to pray over someone this week. So I'll be doing it. All of our community members will be participating in it. Real short and sweet this week. I just want you guys to go out and pray over someone this week. That's going to be our weekly challenge that I'll be doing, and I hope that you guys will join me in. Short and sweet, but it's one of those things, the reason we do these weekly challenges is because as a community of believers, I believe that we should be bettering ourselves and bettering the world around us, and that's why we do it as a community. I believe these little things stack up over time, and especially if we all do them together, they really make a big difference. So I pray that you guys will hopefully join me in doing that. Yeah, so if you guys want to join me, we're gonna go raid another channel. If you're new to the channel and you don't know what we do, so what we do is every single time we end a stream, what we do is we search up live channels with the tag Christian. And let me swap over here real quick. We search up live channels with the Christian tag, and we sort low to high, so low viewer counts, and we just find somebody who we feel like we want to raid, and we go into their chat, and we just put in the chat, every single one of us, that God loves you. So I'll put it in the chat. You guys can join me in the chat. We're just going to spam in their chat that God loves you. And, as you guys have blessed my night tonight, I hope that you guys will go out and help me join in blessing someone else's night. And we will go raid someone real quick. And after that, I'll pray us out before we do that. But usually I look for like a title. Oh, this is the guy we raided last night. Yeah, because he had the same title, Fishers of Men, I'll Praise Him Anywhere. Yeah, he was awesome. I love that guy. Oh, that's us. Workout Wednesday, 20 push-ups per loss, 15 per win. Interesting. Chilling from journaling to artwork. Interesting. Media shares on. This guy's doing media share tonight. Blessed more than I should be. Have we ever rated? I don't think we've ever rated them before. Let's do that. So I'm going to copy the name real quick. So this is the person that we're going to be rating here in a second. Hopefully you guys will join me in doing so. But yeah, let me pray for us real quick, and then we'll go do that. So Father in heaven, I thank you so much for tonight. I thank you for being able to gather here tonight, to be able to dive into your word, to be able to talk about it, to learn something new. I pray that every single person who came by did learn something new, and that we were able to speak true and just about your word, that you were able to use us to further your kingdom on this world. I thank you for calling me and my friends to host this, and I pray that we are doing a good job of pursuing that calling. I thank you for everybody who stopped by tonight, and for everybody who came and chatted and talked or even just listened, and I pray that they had as good of a time as I did. I thank you so much for tonight and how well it went, and I pray that as we go into our week ahead that we might remember some of these things, and that we will remember to put you first in our life. I pray for all the prayer requests that we just mentioned, and for all the ones that were not listed. And I pray that you will be with each and every single one of those situations, helping them in the unique ways that they need to be attended to. Yeah, we pray all of these things in your name. Amen. So, oh gosh, is that something I need to do on stream? Okay, hang on 1 second. Oh, okay. We'll talk about that after stream. Zev sent a link to a website. Which southern state is the least southern? Oh my gosh. It can be later. Okay, yeah, we'll talk about it later. But yeah, Zev, if you want to join me and whoever else is in here, we're gonna go raid this channel real quick. Yes, the weekly challenge. Go out of your way to pray over someone. If you want to stop by again, we do game night every single Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we always do a Bible study stream at this same time on Wednesday nights. So we will always be there. Next week might be a little bit different. So I will keep you guys updated in the Discord about that. But yeah, so help me in joining this channel and blessing someone else's night in the same way that you guys have blessed mine. I pray that you guys have an awesome week. I love every single one of you. You're amazing people, and go make the difference in the world that I know you can. Yeah, I will send you guys out there with the short benediction this night. Go in peace to love and serve the Lord. I know I've been saying that one a lot recently as the benediction, but I really like that one, so I'm going to keep saying it. Yeah, I'll see you guys next time.
Hello.
Brogan.
Hey.